Hello, class. Today we're going to be looking at three different concepts. We're going to be looking at similes, we're going to be looking at metaphors, and we're going to be looking at imagery. We're going to start with simile and metaphor because they are related. There's just a small difference between them. So let's go ahead and begin. First, we're going to start with similes. So a simile is a comparison using words like or as. Some example, he sang like a dying cow. She was cold as ice. They sat in the booth like two little lovebirds. He was happy as a lark. We see these words like and as used to create this comparison. Now, what's nice about using similes in poetry is sometimes we get comparisons that we don't naturally think of. So we would think, something like he sang like a dying cow. Probably we've all said that at some point, and we think of what a cow sounds like when it's dying. That's what the singing is like. But if we used a phrase like, he sang like a snowfall in the middle of June, this comparison takes a bit more effort to make the analysis between the two. It creates this more poetic feel to it, to where we really have to work to find that comparison of how that singing is like this snow in June. The next concept is metaphor. So a metaphor is like a simile. We are making a comparison, but the use of like or as is not applicable here. So we end up getting just that straight comparison. For example, one famous metaphor is men are dogs. So we're not saying that they're like dogs or they're similar to dogs. They are dogs. Now, of course, we know that men are not dogs. We're doing in creating that metaphor is we're asking the reader to provide that comparison or to say, in what ways are men dogs? Others that we see here, used car salesmen are snakes, or high school elections are popularity contests. We've heard these metaphors before, but again, with poetry, sometimes we can get more creative with those metaphors. So let's look at a few similes and metaphors to see how they're working here. Let's start with this poem by Langston Hughes on a dream deferred. So in this poem, we're talking about what what is a dream deferred. So we think of a dream or something that we hope to accomplish, and if it's deferred, that means it's put off or it is something that we'll get around to someday. So we're getting this comparison of what happens to a dream deferred. What happens to a dream deferred? Does it dry up like a raisin in the sun, or fester like a sore and then run? Does it stink like rotten meat, or crust and sugar over like a syrupy sweet? Maybe it just sags like a heavy load, or does it explode? So we can see some similes being used here. Does it dry up like a raisin in the sun? How does a raisin dry up? Or how does a grape dry up into a raisin? Does it fester like a sore and then run? If we think of a sore, it kind of protrudes from the skin and then it runs and it's nasty and it's gross. Does it stink like rotten meat? Okay, so how does rotten meat smell? Is that what happens when we defer our dreams or when we wait on our dreams? Does it stink like rotten meat? So we wouldn't really think of that as something that a dream would do, or a hope or a goal would do when we put it off. And that's why we get these poetic images here. Does it crust and sugar over like a syrupy sweet? Is it something that we've let sit so long that now it's crusted over? Maybe it just sags like a heavy load. Okay, so is it something that's weighing on us now? or does it explode? Does it go away? And we could see this in some dreams. For example, if I dreamed of being a professional tennis player, that dream has passed by the time I reached 15 because I'd never played tennis. And by then, it's too late to learn how to play and become a professional. Some dreams that I have, I can still accomplish. But there are some that I waited too long to where now they've exploded or they've gone away.